This story is told in the perspective of a female. This is my first time talking about this since it happened. Thinking about it still brings back feelings that are hard to describe. But I've been listening to similar stories from other survivors and decided telling my story might be therapeutic for me in some way. It might also help somebody else who accepts rides from strangers. Don't. This happened to me a few years back. I was 21, but I looked like I was 15. I've always been smaller than other girls my age, and I'm smart enough to know that sometimes looking young can attract the wrong kind of attention. Unfortunately, on this night, my guard was down. I had been drinking with my boyfriend and his brother for most of the night. We were all pretty drunk, so I don't remember why we had gotten into a fight, but for some inebriated reason that was probably really stupid, we did. I wanted to get away from the screaming and yelling, so I left. I was crying so hard I could barely see, but I managed to make it to the end of our street, which was only 2 houses down, and that's when he saw me. He was older than me, probably in his 30s. He was driving an older white car of some kind, and he had a big dog in the back seat. He saw me crying and stumbling, and he slammed on his brakes and reversed back to where I was standing. He asked me if I was okay, and I told him no. He asked if I needed a ride, and I told him yes, which turned out to be a huge mistake. Now, I knew not to get into cars with strangers, but I was so drunk, mad, and hurt that I really didn't care at the time. And he had his dog with him, so I figured he was just a normal guy. The fact that it was 2 in the morning and this guy was randomly driving around with his dog didn't even register with me. I got into his car and he started driving. Now, I don't remember much of what happened from the time I got into his car to the time I started realizing something was wrong, but I do remember a couple details that probably saved my life. When I first got into his car, I asked him if I could use his cell phone to call my friend and ask her if I could stay at her house. He let me, but he made me call her on private. I just thought he didn't want strangers to have his number. I asked her to meet me at the Kroger's right down the street from where I was, probably a 2-minute drive. She said okay, and we hung up. After that, I started talking to the guy, probably rambling about nothing, lost in my own conversation. So lost that I didn't realize that we had been driving for more than 2 minutes. Actually, it had been more like 15 minutes. I finally stopped talking and stared out the window. My heart started pounding and my hands began sweating. We were no longer in the city I lived in. In fact, we were surrounded by trees in the middle of nowhere. There was no sign of another living person anywhere, not even a street light. And the dirt road we were driving on looked like it hadn't been used in a very long time. I sat there in silence while he slowly drove down this road, and all I could think is, he's going to kill me when we get to the end of this road. I'm going to die tonight and nobody knows where I am. They'll never find me. A million things were going through my head. Fear is not a strong enough word to describe how I felt. Petrified, maybe. After about another minute of driving in silence, we reached the end of the road. There was an old abandoned house and nothing else. Finally, I got enough courage to talk. I stared straight ahead, too scared to turn to look at him, and asked him what he wanted me to do. He didn't say anything. Instead, he pulled his pants down and revealed himself to me. He sat there, waiting for me to act on his silent demand. I didn't know what to do. I definitely didn't want to do what he wanted me to do, but I didn't think I could run away either. What if he made his dog chase me? What if he had a gun or some other weapon? I had no idea where I was. He did. He could easily chase me if I tried to run in my drunken state, and we both knew it. So I did the only thing I thought I could do at the time. I complied. I did exactly what he wanted me to do. I thought about biting him as hard as I could, but just as I started thinking that, I felt something hard on the back of my head. I'm not sure if it was actually a gun or not. I never saw it, but I didn't want to risk my life if it was. I felt sick, disgusted. I was shaking from fear so badly that it was hard to do what he wanted. Finally, he pulled my head up, and it was at that moment that I realized I did have a way out of this. He had allowed me to use his phone. He had left a trail back to him if something were to happen to me. Making me use private doesn't stop the FBI from tracing the number. I just hoped he knew that too. So before he could make me do anything else, I told him, Sarah is probably really worried about me. She knows I called her from a stranger's phone. He sat there for what seemed like forever, and I could see that he was realizing the same thing. He didn't say a single word. He started the car and drove out of the woods, back towards the city and my home. For the first time, I actually started to breathe again. I felt like I had just saved my own life, but I wasn't free yet. He could change his mind and turn around at any second. I didn't move at all. I couldn't. I did pay attention to the street names and any signs I saw, though. I knew I was going to the police, and I wanted to give them as much information as possible. Finally, we arrived at Kroger. Sarah was actually still there waiting for me. She was terrified that something had happened to me, and when she saw me, I could see the relief on her face. The man didn't say anything as I got out of the car. I struggled to walk to Sarah's car. I was still shaking very badly. As soon as I sat down, got the door shut, and saw that the man was gone, I burst into tears. I told Sarah everything as she drove us to her house. Once I was there, I called the police. They sent a car out not long after, and I told the officer what happened. He asked me to ride with him to the hospital so they could do a rape kit and try to get some DNA. I agreed, and we went to the nearest hospital. My boyfriend and my mom met me there. I had never been so happy to see my mom. I had to tell the doctors and different investigators what happened about 10 times. I was so sick of telling it, of reliving it. And it had only happened a couple of hours ago. I just wanted to go home and go to bed. A week later, I was sitting at home watching the news. They were talking about a girl who had gone missing. She was last seen walking her dog in a popular park about 50 miles north of where I lived. I didn't think too much about it at the time, other than hoping that she was okay. Another week passed and I was watching the news again. They found the girl. She was dead, strangled to death and left in a drainage ditch. She was only 14. When they showed the picture of the man who had killed her, I almost passed out. It was the same man. I know I shouldn't, but sometimes I blame myself. If I could have remembered more details, maybe they could have got him. Maybe she would still be alive. I still live with these thoughts 8 years later. And that's my story. Everything in this story is true. It was by far the scariest thing that has ever happened to me. To truly believe you are about to die, that is a feeling that you can't describe. I'm just glad I'm able to tell it.
So to begin this story, I'd like to state that I'm a 17-year-old female that is out of a traditional high school. Also, I'm fairly popular in the Vine community I'm in, so I get lots of people contacting me. People have been creepy in my comments for as long as I can remember, so when I see people posting weird comments on my content, I just brush it off and delete the comments. But one person took it too far. I put my Snapchat on Vine one night. Keep in mind, it's my personal Snapchat, but I wasn't expecting many people to follow me. A couple of my loyal Vine followers followed me, and one person who had been an unintentional creep, but I didn't care much. On my personal Snapchat, you can see where I work and go to school, but I never thought much of it because it was always my personal one. So, the one creep started snapping me messages like, "Hey, let's hang out tonight," at like 1 or 3 a.m. I never responded because I was either asleep or I just never wanted to. But they were relentless when it came to hanging out. They kept asking and asking, but I never answered. Until one day they messaged me, "Hey, you work in Westlake, right? I live in the Woodland Hills. I'll just show up at Target." At this point, I responded simply saying, "Please don't." They didn't message me for the next couple of days. That is, until the weekend. I got Snapchats from them while I was at work. I opened them, and they were pictures of me at my check lane. I immediately got freaked out, but I tried to brush it off. I received 7 more photos of me at work or walking to my car in the parking lot that weekend. I fully freaked out and decided to tell my mum. Her only reaction though was that it was probably one of my friends fucking with me. This did not help. The next couple of weeks they were quiet and they didn't message me. My phone started having problems though, so I used it less. I took it to the repair center and they said that someone had hacked my fucking cloud of my phone. I was astonished and done with everything at that point. However, I didn't connect the dots because I didn't think this person was that insane. The techs at the repair center backed up my photos and contacts and performed a factory reset on my phone. When I got it back, there was still nothing on it. So tonight, about 2 hours before I'm writing this, all my photos were loaded back onto my phone. I didn't think to look at them because the tech said that they'd all be there. I emailed myself some digital art I had made and downloaded it to my phone. When I was looking through my folder, I found a video of him jacking off and coming in the library where I was doing a project with me in the frame of the video. I was utterly disgusted. I took a screen capture of my downloads folder to rant about on Instagram and deleted the videos and pictures. About an hour after I find these videos, I get a Snapchat message from him saying, "I hope those videos help you. Goodbye." Then he blocked me on Snapchat and Vine.
About 10 years ago, I got a job at a 24-hour gas station while I started college full-time. I'm female, I was 18, and uneasy about working alone initially. But I got used to it, and the regular customers that hung around me made me feel pretty safe. They stuck me on the second shift usually. They could only really afford one cashier as there was a larger, more popular station right next to us. It could get pretty lonely sometimes. After I had been working there for a few months, I was working a particularly slow, wintry shift when the phone rang at around 10 p.m. "Favorite Mart, this is Jade." The phone very rarely rang. I expected it to be my manager.
"Hi, my name's Lisa. I'm a student at the University of..."
The voice was clearly a man attempting to sound like a woman. I humored her, figuring I wasn't one to judge.
"I'm in a graduate program pertaining to child psychology. I was wondering if you could take part in an anonymous survey for my thesis."
This was new, but I looked around at the empty store and thought, what the hell? "Sure thing, but if I have any customers, I'll have to put you on hold."
"Oh, great. Now, to start off, do you have any children?"
"Nope."
"Do you have any young children in your immediate family?"
2 nephews, 7 and 9.
Ooh. Do you ever babysit them?"
Yeah, occasionally." I was still taking this seriously. Being young and naive, I saw no immediate red flags.
"Do you discipline them when you watch them?"
Lisa's voice was getting lower now, like she was getting a little distracted. "I mean, yeah, I put them in timeout." I was now a little wary. This turn-in topic had caught my attention, and I felt the need to hold back on my answers.
"Do you ever spank them?"
I was catching on, but a part of me wanted to believe this person was telling the truth because otherwise it was a little far out. "I usually leave that up to the parents."
"Do they spank them hard?"
I don't know."
"So their parents spank them. Don't you want to spank them though?"
"What?"
"When they're being bad little boys, don't you want to bend them over your knee and just slap the shit out of them?"
"What the fuck?" Lisa had trouble getting that last sentence out as her breathing was labored and rapid. I could now hear the rhythmic slapping sounds that confirmed my slightly delayed suspicions. My shock kept me from slamming the phone. The voice on the other end suddenly changed to a low growl.
"Come on, Jade, tell me how you spank your nephews and like it."
The use of my name snapped me out of it. I disgustedly threw the phone down on the receiver and immediately looked toward the giant glass door entrance to the store. Through the glare, I struggled to see if anyone might be lingering near the empty parking lot. I ran towards the doors and locked them, still scanning my surroundings. I didn't open them again until my boyfriend came to sit with me. I soon forgot about it, chalking it up to some random creeper. 2 years later, I worked for the same chain but was now the manager of a different store. I had a cushy day shift, but one day my night shift employee had an emergency and I found myself alone in the empty store around midnight. The phone rang. "Favorite Mart, this is Jade."
Hello again, Jade.
A voice familiar but not quite recognizable from one sentence. "Who is this?"
Lisa, I have some questions you never answered.
Immediately, I remembered every bit of our first encounter. I ran to lock both sets of doors without hesitation. "You sick fuck, don't ever call me again." As I locked the last door, I glanced outside and, in the distance, I could see a single 4-door car parked in the shadows at a strip mall down the road. I couldn't be sure, but it looked like someone was in it, moving around. Before I hung up, I heard Lisa's male personality grunting.
You're no fun, Jade.
And then I saw that car pull onto the street with its headlights off. So I ran to the back office, which had no windows and contained the security monitors. I called non-emergency and a female officer said they would send a car. Then I called that same boyfriend and told him Lisa had called again. When I told him about the car I had seen, he got right out of bed and got there before the cops. I could see him get here from the monitors and he waited in the office with me. 30 minutes later, a cop pulled into the lot, circled the building, and drove right back out. I decided right then and there that I was closing until morning. I caught hell from the home office, but when I explained the situation, they urged me to file a report and allowed me to keep closing for night shift until my regular ex-security guard male employee could return. I left the station a few months later after getting my CNA license. I never heard from Lisa again, but I still wonder what their true intentions were, and if they were just watching me for 2 years, as my new station wasn't far from the old one, so it was completely possible, and some of my regulars had switched when I had moved. But then again, maybe Lisa just got her kicks from calling and stalking random gas stations, and she had luckily stumbled upon me 2 years later that night. Either way, I really hope I never hear from her again. Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed the video. It was, quite the topic. It's even worse when you're me and get sent proof along with the stories, which I can't show because it's, YouTube. But in all seriousness, these stories aren't just made up and it's a pretty serious topic. So both me and the people that submitted the stories really hope that the viewers learn from the things in this video. Anyways, if you want to watch the collaboration video we did on Busta's channel, I'll link the video in the description and it should be on screen right now. And if you haven't heard of Busta, he does story videos and has a ton of cool topics that you probably haven't seen yet. Also, he's been doing some cool countdown stuff, so you should definitely check that out. He also hits you with an amazing dad joke at the end of each video and is just generally a cool person. So that's about it. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please send in your own personal stories to the email in the description if anything crazy has ever happened to you. And make sure you check out my last video, which was being stalked in the woods on drugs. I know, very specific. It turned out pretty good though. Stay safe and have an awesome day.